good afternoon and welcome to Dr. Kid Speaks. I'd like to welcome all of our listeners from around the world or wherever you are and from whatever platform you're listening on. We just want to welcome you. We have this amazing program this afternoon for you. We're going to be taking what I call a biopsychosocial spiritual look at the experience, not at the problem, but at the experience. What it feels like for for these three ladies that we have on here with us today to go through their cancer experience. So you're not going to hear a whole lot from me. You're not here to hear me. You're really here to hear them. And with me right here is my wife. She is going to now give us a quick narrative about cancer, really, so that we can get to our participants this afternoon. And her name is Marlo Francis.
All right. I just want to say good evening to everyone. And I cannot overemphasize the importance of awareness surrounding breast cancer. According to the American Cancer Society, breast cancer is the most prevalent form of cancer in women, except for skin cancer. It is estimated that there will be 325,010 women who will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year. That's 2020 in the United States. For this reason, October is designated by the American Cancer Society as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Awareness is extremely important as early detection, which is often done through screening. That includes your monthly breast exams and your yearly mammograms, can allow your healthcare provider to catch the disease when it is most treatable. So don't look at breast cancer as a death sentence. If it's caught early, it is very treatable.
Thank you, ladies. This is my wife. She is a nurse practitioner. So she's got some really good information for us on the medical side. At this time, what I really want to do, I'm going to give like a one sentence introduction of each of you. And then I want you to tell the world what else you want them to know about you. And because as you tell them, they'll be able to kind of enter into your journey with you. Okay. So if you take about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. All right. And so we have 3 guests. I'm going to start with Dr. Chris. If you would go ahead and tell us, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Robbins Screen, and then Dr. Nicole. And with me, you can dispense with the doctor piece, and these other ladies will tell you that I'm not very good with labels. It doesn't get me anywhere except get me in trouble. When they want to beat up on somebody or sue somebody, I don't want to get into that. Okay, I'm just Kit. That's it. Okay, but when I have clients, well, protocol says that's what I have to do. So, Dr. Chris, go ahead and just tell us. Take about 3 minutes and give us a picture, a look into your life, to who you are.
Oh, wow. I am in remission from triple negative breast cancer stage 2. I was misdiagnosed for 2 years because of my age. I was told that it was fibrocystic of the breast, and at the time I was very heavily into caffeinated drinks. And I was told, you're too young, you don't have a family history, give up drinks, and they will go away in time. That didn't happen. I decided to step outside of my normal medical providers, and I got another opinion because the cyst supposedly was growing, and I could feel it through my actual skin. And what's weird about my experience is that I was able to, years ago when all this happened, I had a breast reduction and the tumor was there, but they didn't do surgery where the tumor was located. But even after the breast reduction, the tumor was still there. So after getting a second opinion, I remember the doctor that was treating me asked me, where I had a biopsy done at. And I remember telling her, I don't. I never had a biopsy done. I've constantly been told it was fibrocystic. And so she ordered one. She ordered a biopsy, and I had the biopsy on like a Wednesday. My husband went with me, and the procedure itself took 15 minutes. And keep in mind, I've been carrying this mass for years, and I had it on a Wednesday. That Thursday, I got Dr. Sylvester, who was my doctor. She called me at work, and she was like, "Dr. Chris, what are you doing?" And I said, I'm at work. She said, "Well, I need you to come to my office tomorrow and bring your husband." And I remember saying, "Just tell me, is it cancer?" She was like, "I need you to come to my office and bring your husband, and we'll talk then." So a part of me already had in my mind after that call, like, I actually have breast cancer. Like, this is not happening. There's no one in my family with breast cancer. I can't believe this. So sure enough, she was waiting at the door when me and my husband walked in her clinic, and she took us straight back and she said, "You know what I'm about to tell you, don't you?" I said, "It's breast cancer." And she said, I had the same type 17 years ago. She said, "If you put aside your pride, if you're not stubborn, because I know you can be stubborn, even when getting the biopsy," I was like, "I don't think I need a biopsy." But she insisted. She said, "You'll get through this, and hopefully it'll just be one time." So I didn't grasp the concept of what through this meant, but it was a journey. It was a big journey.
All right.
And yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna go back into those things, some of the questions that I have. Okay, Nicole, how about you? What's your story? What do you want to tell the world so they kind of get to see themselves through your eyes, your experience? Can you
Unmute.
are you muted, Nicole?
Yeah, she's unmuted now.
Okay, I think she's off. Robin, how about you? See,
Well,
you know, I got rebuked by Robin when I said Dr. Scream. She said, "No, Robin."
I use that title when I need to, and I definitely.
There you go. There you go. I'm with you.
I always tell people, I put my pant leg on one leg at a time too, and the minute I get too big for my britches, the good Lord's going to deal with me. So,
There you go.
but I come today as a healthcare professional and as a family member of those who've had breast cancer. I am a breast surgeon, and so what that means is I take care of women who have breast issues. That not only includes breast cancer, but that includes women who are at high risk for developing breast cancer. And it includes women who may have a lump in their breast, including a breast cyst or other breast symptoms. I've been in practice for about 20 years now, doing exclusively breast surgery and taking care of women with breast diseases. My family history is a little more dicey in that my mother, two of her three sisters, my grandmother, my cousin, first cousin, and I have a couple other second cousins out there, all had breast cancer. Those family members have not undergone genetic testing. I have, and I don't have the gene, but I've had to walk the walk not only as a physician, but as a daughter, cousin, granddaughter, niece, and it is a journey. I would just like to share briefly, because that's what a lot of women think about breast cancer. I don't have anything to worry about. I don't have a family history. Well, 90% of women who get breast cancer will have absolutely no family history. Your biggest risk for getting breast cancer are being a woman and getting older.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna come back and get that in a moment. Let me just get Nicole to Nicole. You know, yeah, you okay? Come on, Nicole. Let's talk briefly about give us some info about yourself and then how you got to where you are. Okay, go ahead.
Nicole, you're muted.
Are you muted? Can you we can't hear you.
I think it's her connection.
With her connection.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
We can now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead now. We
Okay,
couldn't hear you
thank
for a while,
God.
but go ahead now.
Oh Lord, I'm having technical difficulties, so I do
Hey,
apologize.
that's
But
okay.
my
Don't
name is
panic.
Nicole Edgel. You can't hear me.
Go
I'm a
ahead.
veterinarian, and yes, my name is Nicole Edgel. I'm a veterinarian, and I unfortunately was diagnosed in 2019 with breast cancer, triple negative to be exact. And it's truly is a journey. I have two young girls, age 4 and 1. And at the time, I found my lump while breastfeeding. And so it literally sent me into a spiral of different emotions. Um, and definitely breast cancer is something that does not run in my family. And it's something, honestly, that I never thought I would ever be faced with in life, is dealing with breast cancer. And so I've been on this journey, but God has been getting me through it. And it definitely sends you through spiritually, emotionally, physically. It can be taxing. But thankfully, if you have a good support system and you're an advocate for yourself, you can and will get through this disease.
Okay. I something that came up between I think two of our guests is fibrocystic breast. What advice would you give? Because in the Black population, a lot of women of color, I would say, have been diagnosed with fibrocystic breast. What can you tell them to do when they're diagnosed? Is there anything additional that you could tell them? What do they need to do?
you're asking me, correct?
Either yes, Dr. Chris and Dr. Robbins.
Well, when it comes to fibrocystic,
Well, for me, and I had to learn, and I think I shared this with Dr. Francis, that learning your voice, and that's the biggest thing that I tell women, is to speak up about your health care. You know, looking at an image is not enough anymore, and I had to learn that the hard way. Biopsy it. It's a 15-minute procedure, if that. I remember it took longer to prep me than to do the biopsy. You know, the tumor was there. It was like, it amazes me that no one offered an additional ultrasound or to ask for the biopsy. And because I did have a history from being in my early 20s, especially after having my daughter, of fibrocystic of the breast, that I think they contributed that mass, sadly, to that. And I was informed, tried to eliminate caffeine, which, I worked a lot at the time, and I was in college finishing my doctorates. Caffeine was it. So I believed them, but because it kept growing, I remember conversating with my husband and saying, I think I need a second opinion. And that's why I chose, but my providers were all Caucasian. So I decided to do some research, and I found a gynecologist who was African American. I went out of town to this provider, and when she asked me that question, I was a little floored because no one had offered to do a biopsy. And I was in my mid-30s, getting into my late 30s at the time. So fibrocystic, when I hear that, for me, no, I wanted biopsy to be sure.
Okay. All right. Robin, can you jump in on that?
If I can speak to that.
Yeah.
I think that Dr. Chris's situation is frightening and something we need to be aware of. But I think we need to understand what fibrocystic breast disease is and how to best approach it. It is a real thing. I would say as a breast surgeon or a breast specialist, probably 75% of my patients have fibrocystic breast disease. So if we talk about biopsying all of them, we're going to get ourselves into real trouble. So the question becomes, how do we make sure that we take care of the people who need to be taken care of? I always tell people that when it comes to breast masses, I don't care how much caffeine you drink or don't drink, caffeine has no impact on that. Caffeine can have an impact on breast pain, but it does not have an impact on a lump that you feel. When you feel a lump, you need to figure out what it is. And so Dr. Chris was right to pursue it further, because you can't just say, oh, that's fibrocystic breast disease. I know of a young woman, a recruiter, who was told for years, oh, it's just a cyst, but nobody ever did an ultrasound. And 4 years later, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at that point, it was stage 4. I think one of the things that Dr. Chris said that's very significant is, I always tell my patients, I always tell people when I'm speaking to them, you have to be your own advocate, have your voice. If you can't be your own advocate, because not everybody can, then find someone who will advocate for you. That's very important. And so if you feel a lump, it needs to be worked up. Oftentimes when we do an ultrasound, a cyst has a very characteristic look. And if the cyst does not fit those specific characteristics, then it should be biopsied. Or what we often do with a cyst, because a cyst is just basically a fluid-filled ball or a fluid-filled balloon, is we'll use the ultrasound machine, clean off the area, numb it up, and drain it. And that's just done with a skinny little needle, the same size that you use to draw blood. And if it's a cyst, it's going to go away. And if it's not, then it needs to be biopsied. But the thing is to get a physician who will listen to you, make sure that your concerns are addressed. For my patients, if they have a complaint, we are going to pursue this until they no longer have any symptoms or any breast issues. So if I have a woman, she comes in with fibrocystic breast, we work things up. I think it's just a simple cyst. I'll give it 6 weeks and maybe do some dietary modification because she's having some pain as well. And then I'm going to see her back in 6 weeks. And if 6 weeks she's still concerned about a mass she's seeing, or I'm concerned about it because it doesn't look right on ultrasound, we're at the very least going to aspirate it and then possibly biopsy it.
All right, wonderful. Listen, I have a question here that I really want to ask, and that is, I don't know about you, but I'm going to tell you about me. Whenever I'm under some kind of a stressful situation, I go into this thing that I call my 2 a.m. moment. My 2 a.m. moment is when I'm laying in bed, my wife, I can hear her breathing, and my mind is on fast track, and it doesn't matter all the good things I've done throughout the day or throughout the week. This one thing has preoccupied me like right here, and it's the longest night and I call it the 2 a.m. moment. So my question, therefore, is to all three of you: what was your 2 a.m. moment like when you first got when you either first had a thought that it might be cancer, and or when you got the confirmation that it was cancer? I want all three of you to kind of jump in on that. Nicole, can you jump in on that and tell us about that 2 a.m. moment? Because it's a moment.
I've knocked myself out. I'm not gonna lie. I took something to sleep that first night that I got the confirmation.
Okay.
Fear. working with people with, thanatophobia, which is the fear of death, I finally experienced that fear for the first time in my life. And for me, even though I was stage 2, my daughter was preparing for high school and to go away to school, and my career had just taken off. My husband and I had just bought a home. It was, your mind goes everywhere, financially, spiritually. I'm not ashamed to say I lost my faith in God. I was very angry because I asked myself, and him, why me? I was very angry. And I'm not gonna lie, a part of me possibly still carries some of that. But that first night was the worst. For me, it was the worst.
Okay.
The night before chemo also was the worst. And I had to be put on medications. I remember being on Prozac and Ambien. And so that I wouldn't have those 2 a.m. moments, but I still had them. And I remember one time looking at my husband and he's asleep and I'm sitting up and I'm like, how can you sleep? And I'm laying here with cancer. Just the unrealistic expectations that cross your mind when you're going through that. For me, it honestly, it really got bad for a while.
Okay. Robin, you were nodding your head like this. It seems to me like you either, I think you probably got that by the intimacy of your conversation with either family members and I'm going to drop some words in here, the symptom bearer and or the symptom sharer. Because sometimes we think the symptom bearer is just the one who's worried about this, but symptom sharer, the degree to which people are attached and share this emotional attachment and everything that goes along with it, can put the symptom sharer into a tailspin, and the symptom bearer is going, why are you doing that? I'm the one with the problem. No. You got your problem. I got my problem about my problem with your problem.
Well, and I think for me, it was more of the empathy that I have. And I think it's probably true of a lot of breast surgeons. That's what makes you successful, is that you can relate. And so when I get that phone call, either they have a cancer diagnosis or they have a concern or something's on mammogram, I try not to make those women wait. If they have a diagnosis or something that's highly suspicious, I typically get them in within 48 hours. If they have something that's just a little worrisome, I try to get them in within 5 business days, because I know that they're going to have those 2 a.m. moments. And in those 2 a.m. moments, they've written the will, they've given away all their possessions, they've figured out, they've handed off the kids to somebody. And I want to get to them before they are so wrapped up in that, because it can be consuming, and say, okay, let's talk about your diagnosis. Let's talk about your options. Let's talk about your prognosis, because I know that they're having those 2 a.m. moments.
Okay, wonderful. Nicole, good to see you back. We're talking, I don't know if you heard me or not, Nicole, but we're talking about what, when you first get this, the news or the suspicion, you feel the lump and you're going, oh my goodness. And based on where we are with cancer now, it's like my wife said, it's not a death sentence, but it is. And for some people, there is this stigma that comes with it, and sometimes we create the stigma right here based on misunderstanding as opposed to the stigma that's coming in from the outside. So what was your 2 a.m. moment? What was that like for you? Nicole?
She can't hear us.
Okay, we'll come back. We'll come back to her on that. So we're talking about, listen, you kind of get to know this, and so you know this. So the issue here is this: you're sitting up in bed, Chris. Your husband is asleep. right? I mean, it seems to me like you're asking this question: how can you? This man is sleeping. What do you want him to do? I mean, how well did you communicate your thoughts and feelings to him so that he could begin to not to be out here somewhere, but begin to blend and be at one with you, because the sharer and the bearer must be at one. The Bible talks about yoking. That's what Jesus said. Yoke with me. When you yoke with the other person, things get lighter. So there might be a responsibility on you to say, hey, listen, let me share, as open as I can, how I'm feeling, not what I'm thinking, the difference between feeling and thinking, and then maybe talk about, well, what do you want from this person? Can they give you what you want?
So there's a TikTok that I saw,
okay,
where this female is like, she's got her head propped up and she's staring at her husband and he's sound asleep. And all of a sudden she just slaps him and lays back down really quick. And there was so many nights that I just wanted to slap him. And it got to the point where we had to do counseling because my communication skills, this career went out the window. My faith, sadly, went out the window. Even my love for him went out the window. And I was a very angry person. But what really helped me was those nights when he thought I was asleep, when I did hear his prayers over me.
okay.
And his prayers increased as time went on. And then I started feeling angry still, guilty, ashamed that I was taking out my frustrations on him because he was still trying to love me, trying to be there, trying to support me. He would tell me, because I blocked everybody, and family would call him to see how I was doing. And he'd say, well, XYZ is on the phone, and I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to talk to them. So he became my mouthpiece, or give my excuses for not wanting to talk or see people. Even when my hair started to come out and it was super thin, he was like, tell me what to do. I never wore wigs or anything. I always had long hair. He said, tell me what to do. They have beauty salon stores everywhere for a reason. So that was even a part of the journey, just realizing, that I still could be a woman. I still had to pray. I really had to learn to pray again, without the anger, without the blaming. And even I really had a lot of soul searching to really let my husband in, because I wasn't talking to him. I was talking at him because I was very angry.
Okay. And I guess a part of that is, what in our business we call that acting out of whatever it is you're feeling, which more likely acting out of anger, acting out of abandonment, acting out of separation, acting out of distance, just acting things out. We're still waiting for Nicole to come in. She's muted. But let me just say this. I read a book one time, and it's an amazing book, and it's one of the books that I use when I'm doing tapping into grief. And the book states this. The author states this, that, listen, a lot of us think that grief is related specifically to death. And he made it very clear to say, listen, grief is related to loss. You know what I'm saying? So the question here is this then, after you got this message, this diagnosis, okay, how and what picture did you get of yourself, like here? What was your picture of yourself? And then how did it, did you see, did you get a picture of, different picture of yourself? Did you reframe your picture of yourself? Let me just say that, and then after that we go into the grief piece. Go ahead.
Can I just address your question before? From the standpoint of what I see with the patient and family members, and lots of times specifically the husband, is when the patient, when that woman, or sometimes a man, because men do get breast cancer, it's less common, but when they get that diagnosis, they don't hear or see anything else. And then as they go through the treatment process, even though you're talking to them and they're talking to you, I always describe it as they're treading water. They are doing what they need to do to survive, but processing very little. And I'm always intrigued by the husband because the husband is hurting as well. And lots of times he doesn't know how to help. I think it's amazing with Dr. Chris that her husband was praying for her and she had the opportunity to hear that. But I think when you have that cancer diagnosis, it's kind of like you go into a fog. And I really think it's once you get through treatment and you start to heal that fog begins to lift. I'm always struck by one patient in particular. When she got her diagnosis, she looked at myself and her family and she said, God has forsaken me. And we all know that's not true, but that just epitomized how she felt at that moment. And then watching her come back from there and recover and be healed and understand that God didn't go anywhere is just amazing. But it's a process.
Okay. Yeah. What great. Wonderful. So does that speak then to you, Chris? Because you said you felt that God left you, God abandoned you. You know, so if when you go through it, under the normal circumstances, when we have Nicole's back, I'll get in a second, Nicole. When we have those kinds of separation at the human level, there is this acting out of anger, or we get to the other end of the spectrum and you become very clingy. You either distance yourself or you get very clingy. Yeah, one or the other. So where did you fit in that? Did you become more clingy? You become more distant, or you just acted out what was going on inside of you? And the acting out is you speaking without words, and then we have to try to figure that out. Go ahead.
Ooh, at first I distanced myself.
Okay.
Absolutely distanced myself because I did what you're not supposed to do. I Googled chemo, I Googled radiation, I Googled how surgery scars could possibly look. And something that my husband and I kept to ourselves. And then we got a second opinion again. The doctors, when I met with the first oncologist that we were referred to and the geneticist, I was told that I had 24 months to live and that I was facing a mastectomy. And I was stage 2. So I was like, wow, okay. My husband flipped out. He is a man of few words unless he's laughing and joking. So when he heard that I couldn't move, he's going off. That was the first and the last I've ever seen that in my husband. So I was given 24 months to live. And after he finished and he was crying, I just got his hand and said, we're leaving. We're not accepting this. We're leaving. So when, I isolated myself even from him because I didn't want him to look at me as if I had a clock on my face and time was ticking. And even, I said, I don't want to even tell family this. I said, I know family means well, but they don't always say the right thing. It is what it is. But even when I got my second opinion and I met this wonderful doctor, she said, who told you that? Why would someone tell you that? Where in your report does it say this is your expiration? So that gave me hope. It did. And I was telling her what they said about, a double mastectomy. And she said, I don't see a reason for that. We don't even know how you're going to respond to chemo. We have nothing just yet. So it was then that when I had hope that I started to talk about it more, talk to him more, talk to family more. And I stopped distancing myself. And I realized that I needed to have that support system. But then I realized I had the right to choose my support system. That
Right.
just because they're relative doesn't mean that they had to be a part of that system for me.
Okay. Listen. We got a question from a listener, and we're gonna come back and kind of a follow up with that, just depending on where we go with this, because I'm still interested in the self picture, how you reframed yourself, because then that's going to take us into how do we go where we go, and what do we want to look like when we go where we go, and then also I want to talk about go back and get feedback from everybody about the symptom bearer share, because I think that's a huge piece. Okay, go ahead.
I have two questions from our listeners. The first one is a few females have been diagnosed with lumps or breast cancer, and most of them have had males, and they suggest double mastectomy. Have you noticed that there's less sensitivity with male physicians in regards to this, or females?
For me, the male provider, I have to give him credit. He was very professional, and he was even empathetic to what I was going through. I didn't feel like another number. I just felt like if I'm going to go through this, that I needed to be able to choose my own team, and that's why I found a female provider. Because his thing was mastectomy, and he was very professional when he explained the process to me, double mastectomy. And I remember asking him, why do I need to do a double mastectomy if I only got 2 years? That makes no sense.
Yeah.
So that's why we got a second opinion. Because even when he was explaining it to me, it was a foreign language. So when I met my wonderful doctor in Savannah, Georgia, she just kind of went. I felt like she was yelling at me, but she wasn't yelling at me. She was upset with the provider, for giving that information to us. And she said, if we have to do we have to do a mastectomy on your right side, I would make sure that you're comfortable. And I remember saying, I want to look like a woman when all this is done.
Okay.
I really want to make sure I look like a woman. And so even if that is, when we talked about implants and whatnot, and special bras and whatnot, and then my husband was the one that was like, okay, you want hair, let's go get a wig. So you keep saying you want to feel like a woman, let's go buy a wig. So I remember trying on different wigs and whatnot, and trying to learn how to tie headbands and whatnot, because then it began to become important for me to look and feel like a woman.
Right.
And and I remember when after my 6th chemo, Dr. Mahaney saying, you don't have to even think about a mastectomy, period. She said, the tumor's gone. It was gone. She said, you still got to finish your chemo, but the tumor is gone, and we'll talk about a lumpectomy when we're all done.
All right. Okay.
Something Dr. Robbins had said, make sure that you have a phissician who will listen to you, which is what you brought out, Dr. Chris. Thank you.
Robin, we're still trying to get Nicole audible, but Robin, let me ask you, the question here was there a difference between male and female physicians? Now, is there anything in the research that bears that out, whichever way it goes? And the other one, what kind of anecdotal stories do you hear when people, this male doctor told me this, and so I decided I'll come to see a female? What do you hear?
Well, I can speak to physicians in general, and that's a little bit different than breast surgeons in particular. Physicians in general, female physicians are known to be better listeners. They're known to be more empathetic, and they're known to really be able to sit down with their patients and take the time and talk to them. They just have a better reputation, whether their patient is male or female, whatever disease process we're talking about, they do tend to listen better.
And that's good, though. That's good. That's good because it lowered the stress level.
Yes.
and
But
and,
with,
and feel that you're tapping into their empathy.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
And so when you talk about breast surgeons though, and more, especially now, more breast surgeons are female than male, but that is a key piece of being a breast surgeon, is the ability to listen and help your patients discern and make decisions.
Yeah.
And so a breast surgeon, male or female, who's not a good listener, um, is probably not going to be very successful. Um, I never tell my patients, well, I shouldn't say never, but rarely do I tell my patients, you have to have a mastectomy. I talk about what their options are and the pros and cons of each of them. There are certain patients that won't qualify for a lumpectomy. If you have a woman who has a really small breast and a very large tumor, she may not qualify for a lumpectomy. But then there are things that you can do. You can do the chemotherapy first, and then she may qualify. So I never tell a woman that you have to do X, Y, and Z. And for my triple negative patients, I mean, we have made so much progress, and these two ladies / doctors are a testimony to that. But we have gotten so much better at treating triple negative breast cancer. When my aunt was diagnosed with it in 2006, it really was almost a death sentence. And since that time, we've gotten better. And now I would say definitely within the last 5 years, but probably within the last 10 years, we have protocols for how to best treat it. And it usually starts with chemotherapy and then surgery. And again, because it can be so much more aggressive, it's unlikely, even in a young woman, that I'm going to tell her that she needs to have a mastectomy, because again, if you're telling somebody they have 2 years to live, then why do they have to have a mastectomy? Because the surgery itself doesn't have a bearing on long-term survival. You have to do something, but lumpectomy, mastectomy, there's no difference in survival. So it's the whole treatment process, the radiation, the surgery, the chemotherapy, that lead to long-term survival.
Okay. Listen, hold on. Nicole, can you hear us? But we're still not hearing you, though. Okay. All right. Let me, while my wife is working on that, I want to go back to this, because this is a mirror, as you can see. It's one of my most lethal weapons when I'm doing sessions with people. And what happens here is this: that whenever there's an external change, whether it's biopsychosocial, spiritual, whatever, it's reflected here. And so the question then becomes, because it's reflected here, what happens here is we begin to live this as our reality. And so now it changes the way we see ourselves, the way we see ourselves seeing people seeing us, which then redefines our behavior, the way we look, and Chris talked about special bras and all this kind of stuff, and and that in itself, if you're not able to get a handle on that, then you have cancer, but now you have this added level of it might be self-imposed, I don't know. Anyway, it's stress. Why? Because you believe this. Well, there is this thing. This mirror is kind of crazy. But if I turn this around, this is the magnified side. And so what happens here is this: while the world is looking at you like this, you're looking at everything about you here, the magnified, as being exaggerated sometimes. So and then you behave based on the exaggeration that you see right here, as opposed to framing yourself with this. So ladies, how do you do that? Because I'm thinking that a part of breast cancer survival, recovery, staying in the race, being, is not just to take care of yourself here, but to take care of yourself like right here. To me, that's a huge issue, because even when I talk with clients, that is a huge issue. So Robin, when they come to you and you are prepping them for surgery, where do you take them based on where they are and you think they might want to go? So how do you do that?
I look at what my experience has been with other patients.
Okay.
And I try to reassure each individual that the feelings that they have, the fears, the anger, the frustration, the worry, that's all normal. I try to really get them to talk about what it is they're feeling. And sometimes I can preemptively say, I know at this point, this is probably how you're going to feel. When they complete treatment or when they're nearing the end of treatment, as an example, the support system tends to go away. Oh, you're finished, you're fine. And the reality of it is, as that breast cancer survival, you're just starting the process. You're just beginning to heal. Those wounds are really, you're allowing them to open up now and start to deal with some of that stuff. And so to tell them, hey, you're going to feel angry, you're going to feel sad, and people are going to be like, what's wrong? You're fine. But that diagnosis changes you. And so I really try to just confirm for them that how they're feeling is normal.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I was having a little private conversation, but thank you so much for that. Chris, where are you when you look in the mirror?
Did we lose her?
We did. I do have a question though from our listeners, and you may be able to help us out, Dr. Robin. The question is there anywhere around Huntsville area are you in Huntsville, by the way?
No, ma'am. I'm in Texas.
In Texas.
See, okay. Now, Lone Star State. Listen, she made me take down my my dad's Cowboy football, which is signed. She made me take it down.
I'm sorry, I'm a Steelers fan.
Oh, okay.
So I'm glad you made him take it down.
Okay.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right. No, but someone was asking, but we need to just look it up here in Huntsville. Free clinics for if there's any place that does free mammogram.
I can speak to that in general. Most states will have somewhere, either through the foundation in the hospital, through the county hospital, through cancer programs, where you can get no or low cost mammograms. You have to research it, but it's out there. I would say if you don't have insurance, that doesn't mean don't go get your screening mammogram. That doesn't mean if you have a symptom, don't go get it checked out. I can speak here in Texas, and I'm just going to use that as an example to say there have got to be similar programs elsewhere in the country. But in Texas, you can get your mammograms covered through most of the facilities, the hospital foundations. Once you get a diagnosis of cancer, you then qualify, if you don't have health insurance, for emergency Medicaid through Texas. And people go, oh, well, I work, I wouldn't qualify. You have to have a fair number of assets. It's a special Medicaid in that the qualification standards are different. So I always tell women, if you have something going on, especially if you think it's cancer, you need to go get it taken care of, because there are programs to get your mammogram paid for. There are programs to get your biopsies paid for. And then there are programs to help with your cancer care.
How about the Affordable the Affordable Care Act?
Is that with the Affordable Care Act, or
that was before the Affordable Care Act?
Okay.
All of that has actually nothing to do with the Affordable Care Act. I don't know why it is, because Texas is very conservative and backwards in some things. But this emergency Medicaid for female cancers has just been phenomenal, because I see a lot of single working moms whose children are on CHIP and carry the insurance because they can't afford it, who now qualify for Medicaid, and we can get them care. So there are ways to pay for it.
Okay, great. Well, listen, we have We have like
9 minutes.
9 minutes left, and there are a couple of areas that I really want to get to. And one is, you know, we've been kind of edging around this thing here, and you know, and Chris, you talked about your spouse, but when my wife has a headache, or she's hurting, or she, you know, whatever, she bumped her knee, there is a piece of me based on the degree to which I'm attached to her, which means that I am going through what she's going through. But then if she goes off into the woods somewhere and says, I need to be by myself, she is discarding the fact that the degree to which I'm attached to her, and I am grieving for her. See, we didn't even touch grief yet. And I'm grieving for her. She robs me of that when she walks away, because she's denying this attachment, okay, to go through what this attachment is feeling in terms of the loss. You know, and so where do, really quick, we got like 6 minutes left, and then I want to touch spirituality. Where do we go with that, please? How do we? Because I don't want to be robbed of that.
You don't want my opinion. I always tell my patients, it's not about the husband. It's not about the children. It's about you. And at this point, we need to take care of you. That's not fair to the husband sometimes, but I got to get her through it. And the husbands are really struggling. I'll just say this real quick and I'll try to shut up. I always see it after surgery. I'll have a husband who doesn't talk much during the visits, who doesn't say a lot, or he's very reassuring and comforting to his wife. But when I take her into surgery and I come out to tell him we're all finished and the outcome, the husband's entire demeanor changed. And there was a wall up before, and you can see the wall come down, and you can see the relief in his face, and you can see, you know, the joy to know that at least, you know, for now, or at least this step, it's okay.
Okay, all right.
But it's not about you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give you a little challenge though. Hold on, Chris. And here's the challenge. They come to see you maybe once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 months, but she has to see me every day. So how can it not be with me when she has the pain? He said, I thought I was going to throw a little bit of a challenge in there, honey.
It's not a challenge, because mama, and especially African-American women, we're always taking care of everybody else.
Now, you shouldn't have said that.
It's true. It's true. And this is the point where you got to take care of mama. I use my airplane analogy. You know, you fly on the plane. When you sit on the plane, nobody pays attention, but they give those instructions about, in the event of an emergency, should the oxygen mask drop down? I'll put that to the patient. What do they tell you? Put it on yourself first. Right. The history behind that, though, is I guess in the 50s and early 60s, the oxygen mask used to come down all the time. And what did mama do? She put it on the child. You know what happened to mama? Mama passed out. So mama couldn't help on the plane because mama's passed out, but the baby's breathing. So it's got to be about us.
It is. Sorry. It is. I don't have a problem. You and I, we're going to talk off camera. Hey, listen, Chris, real quick. I think you might have alluded to that, and then I want to kind of end with this spirituality piece, if y'all don't mind, okay?
Okay. I did push my husband away, as I said earlier, and he struggled. He is very, very affectionate, and so when I rejected him, he felt rejected. You know, I even heard him, you know, ask me, you know, what did he do wrong? And like, Dr. Robin said, it's not about you. And it's ironic, you know, how she was saying it, because just last night, you know, I have a women's therapy group, and we were talking about the word parenting. Who gets it, and how was it applied in various aspects of our lives? And of course, they immediately went to, you know, being a parent to their child. And, you know, I threw this that you have to parent yourself too. You have to make sure you're taking care of yourself, just as you're taking care of your child and you're parenting your husband. And sometimes we even have to parent our own parents as they get older, you know? So I had to learn the hard way because I can be stubborn sometimes. One, I had to listen to the instructions, and I hit on that before, you know, like Dr. Sylvester was saying, you know, when we met, she said, if you don't be stubborn and you listen, like we have to tell our children sometimes, this will work. And my husband felt, I can honestly say he didn't know how to cope with it, but he felt it. And all he could do when I would push him away is, just still sit beside me sometimes and just let me go through my moment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or rub my back sometimes and say, I don't want to say anything because I don't want you to bite my head off. But, at least let me sit here with you. Like, he even had to get to the point to ask me permission to sit with me. And this is my husband. We took vows twice together, So it like I said before, it's a journey. It's really
it is a journey. And let me say, my wife's going to address something. Then I want to address this, then we're going to have to close out. But when that happens, it's possible that the degree to which people are attached, they may go through a piece of what I may call helplessness because they feel that they can't do something that they want to do. And then they have to watch the other piece of themselves go through this thing all by themselves.
You hit it on the head. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, listen. You're going to do this?
Okay.
We're just rounding it up. We got to. I don't even know if we get to spirituality, but
it's just a few minutes left. But something that I've gathered from Dr. Chris and Robin is I wanted to summarize just a little bit before the time ran out. And the first thing is that we need to listen, find a physician to listen to correctly. All right.
ma'am.
And number two, be sure you are your own advocate, or find someone who can speak for you, because you do need an advocate. And sometimes you're too stressed to be able to think for yourself. So find someone trustworthy. Get support from family or friends. Find a support team that can help you through the process. And I like what Dr. Chris says, don't Google. It messes your mind up, okay? Because there are just so many websites out there and people with various opinions. Just find you a good doctor and they will collect a team, get a team around you instead of Googling. And the last thing is that we haven't discussed, but I'm going to leave that, it's spiritual support. You need that above anything else. You need someone to pray you through this whole process.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm just going to say thank you all so much. Didn't get to touch all the areas. There are 5 basic areas, 6 sometimes, that I work with. There's the cognition, the emotions, the physical piece, and then there's a social piece, and then there's a spiritual piece. Everything I do revolve around that kind of pentagon framework. We're able to get through all of it. And the reason for that is because you are so dynamic. I mean, you are so good. You're very passionate about what you do. I was kind of sorry that, Nicole was having some technical problems, but nevertheless, when she was on, she did a wonderful job too. I want to thank all 3 of you for just being here to edify, to share your story, share your profession. One of the things I want to say is that, even though it probably never didn't come out, but it's more than just a intervention. And that is, even though you do all of these things, you experience all of these things, you're still able to do what I call self-care. Self-care. I know for Robin, when you've gone through all this surgery, you think, oh man, how did I do it? Self-care. And then for you, Chris, self-care. Nicole, self-care. You're right. It is the symptom bearer, the one who has the symptoms, that has to deal with it. The sharer comes in at a different level. Absolutely right with that, right? Yeah, you're right with that. So,
thank you all.
Thank you all so much. Yes, and I'm sure that those guests that were online, they learned a lot, because I mean, y'all were good. That's all I can say. And so I thank you so much. And we need to do something like this again. Maybe we need to do this next year, but we need to maybe do it like at the first of the month and the second and the last of the month. Then we can have more time to kind of crystallize some of the ideas that we kind of ran through this time. Okay.
Thanks
Would
for
you all be
sharing.
willing to do that next year?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing your
Thank you.
experience.
All right.
Thank
And
you. Have a good night, everyone.
to our audience, thank you for watching,
Yep.
and you have a blessed day.
All right. Thanks much. Bye-bye.
Bye.